situation certainly raises numerous questions. And with me now in studio, I have two guests. One of them is Dr. Susan Gitau, a counseling psychologist. And also I have with me Patricia Andago. She is a research and data journalist with Odipodev. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Susan, I'll begin with you. This news, of course, is shocking and frightening. How do you even begin to explain what is happening? In your view, is this femicide, which is described as the killing of a woman or girl, in particular by a man, and on account of her gender?
Well, may I say it's shocking, and especially to the family, and when it is done by strangers, and even worse, when it is done by somebody inside the family. We are yet to get more information from the researchers, because the trend at some point was very high, and then at some point went down, and now it's up again. And so finding out what could be happening behind, I think it's also very critical. But we know, definitely, when we think about femicide, to me I see a lot of hatred towards women, objectifying them, because the manner they are killed, it can tell you it's all about gender. But when again we start discussing about gender, we are thinking about poverty issues, because you will find vulnerable young women and girls. You have seen the age gap. It's actually the productive population in the country. You will find that could be a factor. The other one could be the gender stereotypes and discrimination, and a lot of what is trending on social media. Because you cannot victimize me, you cannot harm me, and then you end up blaming me for that. So when more of this is happening, and you can read from the comments on social media, you will find some people like they're celebrating. It's like honor killing. We are not here to please anybody. This is our life. So you can also imagine what happens in the lives of these women. And I guess it's very important for the people who are watching us right now and listening to us. If somebody tells you, I'm going to kill you, that's enough for you to report. It's enough for you to actually run away. Why am I saying that? Because these people who kill women, they have warned them several times. They have tried to hit them several times. But rarely do people think. Sometimes you're even lured. We have seen cases where somebody says, now we have made up, I will never do what I did to you again. They end up killing you. The other thing I would want to say is that we are realizing, even in our work as counseling psychologists and therapists, that there's a lot of pent-up anger issues. And there's rising cases of mental health issues. And I guess we have not looked for a very strategic, systematic, and multi-sectoral approach to mental health issues, because you cannot kill anyone if you are normal. Something is amiss. But are we looking at it that way? If you listen to very many people, men especially these days, they are hurt, they are angry. Are we looking at what is making them angry?
Okay, yeah, and we'll delve into that in just a moment. But let me bring Patricia into this. Patricia, we revealed some of that data, and you were involved in collecting it. Yes. Before we go further, tell us how you gathered these shocking statistics.
Yeah, so I think even before I delve into that, I just want to echo some sentiments that Susan has made regarding the fact that there are majority of the time there are signs. So the data does show that. I think you've read it out. For most of the cases, it's either a husband, a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend, an ex-husband, or a relative. That is 75% of our cases. It was somebody you knew, and there were signs for most of them. There were signs way before the killing happened that this person is abusive, and that there is a risk that that person should have, kept themselves safe from.
Right.
Yeah. Just to move on to your second question in terms of how we collected the data. So for a good part of last year, we've been scraping data from media reports. So several media reports from Nation, to Standard, Citizen, to K24, to The People Daily. We've been scraping data using a variety of keywords which are usually used to tell these stories. And then we took a very long time cleaning and verifying that data and ensuring that the data that we have left in our database is within the definition of femicide, the official definition according to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. Yeah.
Okay. Susan, you talked about some of the root causes, one perhaps being poverty and the other being the issue of mental health. Now, I want to talk further about that. Patricia brought up the fact that in many cases there were signs. What are some of these signs and how can women act upon them?
So when we basically talk about sexual and gender-based violence, we are talking about all forms of violence, whether it's physical, psychological, emotional, financial. So most people are unaware that when somebody hurls an insult at you, they're basically abusing you and they're giving you a warning. When they are also hitting you, pushing you, they're giving you a sign. When they also deny you money and they know you need it, especially if you have children, and they have the money, not that they don't have, they are abusing you. And slowly by slowly what happens to the abused, you are also growing in terms of anger, resentments, bitterness. This other person who is the perpetrator, day in, day out, they are enjoying. They actually enjoy making you feel like a victim. And the more women are made to feel like victims, the more they go deeper into the same. But one day, this person who is being victimized will try to hit back. And this one who is the perpetrator is waiting for that opportune time. Some other people, it's issues of unresolved trauma. Like I saw my father maybe beat up my mom, and I thought and I said and I saw I'll never do that. But I come and repeat the same thing because we do get attracted to spouses who are similar to our own parents. But we forget, and no one is helping you to have this insight. When I talk about unresolved traumas, it's because people react on triggers. A small trigger. And I think the cases went up during COVID-19. I'm sure she can tell that because we were discussing. Because a lot of people now could not put up with the pressure in their houses. Because most people that you also find abusing alcohol, drugs, and other substances of abuse, what is it that they are masking? When somebody leaves home very early and then late at night, that's when they come home, there is no conversation. What are we talking about? There is negative tension, negative energy, and it only waits for a trigger for it to be explosive. And those are the issues we are saying. Let's not go looking for psychosis. Let's not go looking for schizophrenia. Can we look at the way people are interacting on a daily basis? Because some of the communication that happens before people kill each other or before femicide happens, you can tell. Even family members say, this was happening, this was said, this was reported. And you hear some of the mothers telling their daughters, I persevered everything with your father, that's why we are still there. But today it's different.
Yeah.
I think those days they would walk away, now no one is walking away, they are taking your life.
Right. Patricia, you know, on the Africa Data Hub site, it has been revealed that, quote, the findings show that the cases are not isolated. They reveal recurring patterns indicating a deeper and more systemic issue. Can you explain this?
Well, I think regarding the systemic issue, I might leave that to Susan, but in terms of the pattern, I think one of them is what we've talked about, that most of it is, you know, it's mostly the perpetrator is somebody who is very close to the victim. So it's literally somebody that they trusted. Another pattern that we are seeing recurring over and over is how scary it is that many of these case killings are happening at home, in the victim's home, or, you know, in the perpetrator's home. Another pattern that we're seeing is in terms of justice and the search for justice. There are very few cases that we can confidently say have been closed. Of course, that could be because we also used data collection from the media reports, and perhaps some of the cases have not been reported by the media. But even for the few that we have found, it takes an average of about 5 years to close a case. So you can imagine that family carrying that burden already after what has happened and having to wait for that long period of time to seek justice, and many of them actually don't end up getting it.
And is relying on media reports the only or the best way to go about getting deeper into the data?
I think it's a very good start. Yeah, I think it's a very good start because, I mean, the media, as in its role, which I strongly believe in, as being the fourth estate and reporting to the public all the issues that are happening, they do have that responsibility, and I do trust that whenever it needs to be said, they will tell the story. So I do believe it's a very good start. However, it would be more beneficial if perhaps we could complement that with police reports, because that could also add the accuracy of the data. Of course, these things are always very sensitive, so it makes it a bit difficult, but that would make it more accurate and comprehensive.
And of course, another challenge is that not everybody does report these issues. Okay, we are almost out of time, but Susan, leave us with a sense of hope. Where can these women and clearly aggrieved and troubled men find help? Where can they turn to? Who can they turn to? Are there institutions out there to avoid such troubling situations?
Well, I know the Kenyan government is trying a lot, because we do have the polycare centers, we have the gender desk in every police station, and I am very happy with what we are trying to do in Thika, because we have police women trained. Those gender desk offices are manned by women, because we say when it comes to violence, women are safer objects. Even when it comes to trauma therapy, cases of sexual, gender-based violence, women are safer objects. Maybe I would also request the media, every time they cover news like this ones, you ask yourself, how is Waine's family moving on? What is happening in that space? So that you can be, if it's possible, because you have our contacts, you can also be telling us, in this home, we have covered this news. Because when she's talking about going deeper into these families' lives, because you have to report, and you have to report in a manner as it is, but who thinks about those families? So I am also calling maybe for the government of Kenya to hasten the steps of ensuring the counselors and psychologists bodies working, because we are the only ones, we are the majority of all the mental health practitioners who can reach to the people at the grassroots level. So I also let the families that have been affected to know that sometimes no one else can give you this space, can give you this peace and compassion, but you. And we have a drive right now. We are calling Moyo wa Huruma, that we can help people to go inward, all of us. Because if you go inward, you will think like media, what do we do? If it is the government and the leaders, what do we do? If it is the family members, what do we do? And I believe if this is done in English, so it should be done in Swahili, should be done in mother tongue wherever it's possible. So that the people down there can know what is going on.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid we're out of time, but this is clearly a very deep-rooted problem, and your insights are appreciated. Patricia and Susan, thank you so much. All right, it is now time for a breather. With me has been Dr. Susan Gitau, a counseling psychologist.